Hey up everybody, my name's Joshua Morrison, director of Johnny Moz's Lessons in Confidence. Today I wanted to talk about swearing for a little bit. Particularly, why is swearing such a thing that is such a social faux pas? Particularly, you know, in the olden days it would be like, if you said a swear word, everyone would just kind of look at you. I remember when I was about 5, I was in Sainsbury's with my mum. And there was this woman on the phone. She was effing and jeffing all over the place. And my mum said to me, "Now, you don't want to turn out like her." And at the time I thought, like, I treated it almost like swearing was like taking crack or something like that. And I saw this woman like a crack addict sort of thing, where it was, you know, this sort of idea that if you swear, you are a bad person because of that. And I suppose it's the fact that you don't have the filter present to filter out these bad words and instead replace them with quote good words. So for the conflict for this video is not me trying to climb this hill, it's me trying to not swear. So with all the little slips and stuff, I'm sure I'm bound to let out a little F word or a little S word somewhere along the lines. But yeah, as you grow into a teenager and as life sort of continues on, you start to become someone who does swear more. When I turned 10, 11, 12, you start getting on the Call of Duty lobbies and stuff like that. You start hearing all sorts of horrible words. F word, S word, B word, both B words, that word, all kinds of horrible words, right? And some words are rooted in some kind of history of violence or history of oppression or some history of, you know, just being foul to our fellow man. The word zipperhead is a word that I've always wondered why it's not more offensive than it perhaps should be. So in the Korean War, what they used to do is they would line up loads of little Korean lads head to head all in a row, and then they would get a jeep and they would run all their heads over with the jeep, and they were called zipper heads because the tire would leave this kind of zipper-like pattern from the tire that would be left in their flattened skulls. So that is a pretty horrible history for a word to have, and that word has kind of fallen out of the general lexicon overall, I think for the best. And as time goes on, general swearing like your F word and your S word, these are words that don't really have a history of being used against a particular type of person or against a particular group or anything like that. They're just general words that mean, let's say, slightly taboo things like sex. You know, the F word means, you know, tooth, right? And the S word is about, you know, fecal matter, which is a fairly taboo thing because it's not like we go up to someone and say, "Oh, hello, I had a really great poo just before I came and saw you. Yeah, it was really nice. It was, you know, one of those big ones where, you know, you feel the slight satisfaction after it comes out. Yeah, not like them horrible little ones where it plops and it splashes back and it hits you, right? So you got these words that mean taboo things, and as we as a society have become more accepting of social taboos regarding sex and so on, as the liberation of sex has become very widespread in the past 50, 60, 70 years, these words themselves have also become more normalized in our society. And I don't think there's really a problem with people effing and jeffing all over the place. I eff and jeff all over the shop, you know, but I think it's also good to like, I've got a mate, right, who I spoke to him a few months ago, and he was saying that he was trying to quit swearing. And I sort of thought, oh yeah, I have tried that before. I've set myself like a challenge where I'll try and go a week without swearing. And the reason I did that wasn't because I found the words particularly offensive, it was because I thought when I get to finally use that word, people will turn around and think, oh, he's serious, you know? If you take someone that never swears and then they say a swear, you notice, compared to someone's effing and jeffing, now they don't have anything to resort to emphasize. This person who doesn't swear has this tool that they have saved in case of emergency, right? So I think it's good to not swear for that pure practical reason. However, I don't really see the problem with swearing as an idea, as a thing, and perhaps the fact that you can swear for emphasis is reliant on the fact that a swear is a taboo thing. But perhaps at the same time, it's also that we've got this ability to communicate with so many beautiful words, and the idea that someone is resorting to the same words again and again is a lack of creativity and a lack of interest in the English language, and you know, articulating their point with any real artistic merit. Instead of saying, "Oh, that was benign," they'll just say, "Oh yeah, that was awful." Again, try not to swear for this video, right? So yeah, you've got all these different words, and as time has gone on, particularly in the 80s, comedy was able to start using swearing a lot, and they used it to, great effect, I suppose, because it became more normalized around that point. You were able to swear on the telly, and then as time went on, swearing kind of became ingrained within comedy, and comedy as a result became more of an adult-oriented sort of thing. I think everyone would sort of agree that, say, South Park is more, quote, mature than The Simpsons, in the context of you wouldn't want your kid to see South Park, but you probably wouldn't mind your kid watching an episode of The Simpsons, right? But I don't think anyone would necessarily say that South Park as a whole is a more mature show. I mean, it's completely scatological and very overt with its messaging, whereas The Simpsons is a bit more, takes time to figure out what it wants to say, and it says it with some degree of tact. So you got the idea of what mature is from an age rating point of view, from a appropriate for kids kind of view, and then you've got the idea of maturity from a holistic overall worldview point of view, and those are two completely different things. And we kind of need a bit of both, because we need age ratings. You don't want to turn on a film and watch it with your kids and it turns out there's a sex scene in it. You don't want to buy your kid a video game where he can go around and be a terrorist, like Modern Warfare 2 or GTA or whatever. Right? You might not want them to be exposed to that kind of thing, even if you don't believe that, like the logical thing to do, which is to not believe that kids will see what happens in video games and then actually act out in real life, because obviously they don't. But you might not want them to be exposed to that kind of thing anyway, which, depending on your form of parenting, is completely fair enough. And yeah, you've got these words, and I think as time has gone on and they've become more ubiquitous and they've been used more and more and more, and they're more openly used, and that kind of thing, they kind of lose their impact. So if you watch a comedy special now, people tend to be effing and jeffing all over the place. But if you watch a comedy special from the 70s, people aren't really swearing. But if they do swear, it's for a reason. It's part of the joke. It's part of the punchline. And the fact that they swore was really kind of a wow moment, right? Now, comedy, I think, has gone in this direction where it's become too... it's awkward to say this. I think comedy has become too offensive, but not in the sense like, oh, I'm so offended by it. I mean more in the sense that now comedy needs to have all the swearing in it. It needs to have all the F and jeffing, and it needs to have this like current political kind of take on the world. When I feel like a lot of the true beauty of comedy is from the universality of it. Like take something like Mr. Bean, for instance. That's something that anyone from across the world, no matter what the culture, no matter what the backstory, no matter what the person, whether they speak English or not, right, they can enjoy that show. And then you can go a bit further, you can take something like Fawlty Towers, which has very little swearing, very little of actual anything to offend, right? Because it's a slapstick, farcical kind of show. And I feel like we've lost a lot of that because we're trying to just be as edgy and offensive as possible. And I'm not saying that from the point of view of someone who is offended by the Dave Chappelle special of the day that got cancelled by Netflix and all that bloody stuff. I'm talking more about comedy as a whole, and how its reliance on swearing has led to its degradation. And some of my favourite comedies have swearing in them, like Peep Show swears all the time, The Office swore, Alan Partridge swore sometimes. You got all these sort of things, but in Alan Partridge, I think, is a good example because he was a radio DJ. When he swore, part of the joke was that he swore because he's not a very good radio presenter, and it would tie into whatever he was talking about, and that meant that the swearing had a purpose rather than it just being used because that's what we do and we want to be seen as an adult show and not a show for little kiddies. So to get back to just the nature of swearing on its own and its development across the modern day, it has gone from this very taboo thing where if you swear, people will kind of turn around and look at you, to this thing where, you know, you can, like, I can swear in front of my mum. If my mum swore in front of her mum, she'd have got, like, she'd have been punished for that, you know? If her mum had swore at her mum, God knows what would have happened, you know? And I'm not sort of talking about from a slippery slope point of view. I just sort of feel like it would be good if we could have these emphasis words back again and take back the great variety of the English language and use it to its full effect rather than having to rely on swearing and rather than having to rely on cheap tricks to gain a reaction, because as time goes on, that doesn't get a reaction. You can't just pull an Eddie Murphy and just do a comedy special where you just F and Jeff and shit and this and fucking this, you know? You can't anymore. Because if you do that now, it's pastiche, it's boring, it's been done. It's old hat and it's quite quaint as a result, rather than it being the, you know, boundary pushing thing that you kind of want to actually do. Because what's the point if you're not trying to push at some kind of boundary? So yeah, I think that's going to be the overall message of the video, is that swearing is fine and I don't have a problem with swearing on a moral level. I feel like it would be good to have our impact words back because it's very useful to have them when you really want to swear. You noticed how I did swear at the end of the video. I failed what I said at the beginning. And when I swore, I think it had more of an impact than some of my videos where I've been a bit more fucking this and shitting this the entire way through. Because then it just becomes this white noise, this filler word, and you don't really want it to be that. You want it to be a word of emphasis, and you want to reduce filler words in general anyway, as you try and articulate what it is you're trying to say. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you have a great rest of the day. Go say fuck you to your parents and tell them I told you to do it. Yeah, that's a great way of ending the video, isn't it? Yep. Get a complaint from the little Jimmy. He's like, I followed your advice and then my parents have grounded me for 3 weeks. What am I going to do? Oh, well, you know, if that's the case, I've got many videos for you to watch in the back catalogue. You probably wouldn't want to watch me after that. You'd probably be annoyed at me. But then it's your own fault anyway. You should have had a bloody brain cell in your head. Anyway, take care, everybody. I am slowly going back down the hill. Right. Nah. Okay. Right.